Today, we're going to talk about why your lesson plan is the best behavior tool in something I like to call from chaos to calm. We've all been there. You've got the perfect seating chart, the most colorful classroom rules poster, and a reward system that involves gold stars and stickers. But 10 minutes into that lesson, little Johnny is making a paper airplane, Sarah is staring out the window, and 3 people are asking to go to the bathroom. Most people think classroom management is about consequences. Your best behavior management tool isn't a clip-up chart, it's your lesson plan. So today, we're going to break down the 5 specific ways strong lesson plans can help mitigate behavior issues before they even start. First up, let's talk about depth of knowledge. Behavior often increases when a student feels either unsure or bored. So what do we need to do? We need to activate prior knowledge. Don't just jump in. Start by asking, what do we already know about this? This hooks their brains. Then we need to find that sweet spot. If your lesson is too repetitive or recalling common information, they'll find their own entertainment. Think about our phonics lessons. Often, we are having them repeat letters, sounds, or rules in a choral reading type activity. This is hard to motivate students. We need to find opportunities to meet our phonics programs with more engagement. Think about using whiteboards or index cards or even your smart boards, but make sure that you are engaging students with participation. On the other hand, if it's too deep, if your lesson is requiring too much knowledge or thinking for your students without scaffolding that learning, your students are going to shut down and they're going to act out to mask their confusion. Let's think about math. When we're teaching a new math concept that can be challenging, make sure you are building the learning on previous math skills. Include visuals, seek participation, and monitor which students are struggling to stay connected. Here is a tip. Plan your questions in advance. Move from recall to more strategic thinking to keep the momentum building for your students. Once you know your students, ask questions that might help engage them with learning. Ask them to turn to their shoulder partner and discuss those questions. This will help build their confidence and activate that motivation and engagement in your lesson. In our next tip, I want you to think about teacher-led versus student interaction with your lesson planning. If you are the only one doing the work, you are the only one staying focused. When students are just hearing a teacher-led lesson, that's when those wiggles happen. They move, they interrupt, they poke at their neighbors, they might be rolling around and doing gymnastics on the carpet. So what's your solution? More active participation. Don't just show them place value on the big board and tell them, this is the hundreds column, this is the tens column. Put place value blocks in their hands at their desks. Allow them to explore those blocks. Here's my exploration rule. If you give your students manipulatives, they are going to play with it. So plan for that. Give them 2 minutes of exploration time to build towers or fiddle or whatever it is that is safe for them to do. Set a timer and give them a clear signal that when that timer is up, blocks are in the corner of your desk and your eyes are on me. This helps create a mutual respect. You've allowed them that time to explore and get their interests out, but now it is time to focus on learning. It is okay to have that conversation with your students and let them know you've given them the time and now the blocks are for learning. So if you see them using them for something else, you're going to have to remove them so that we can stay focused on our job, which is learning. Another thing you can give them that's tangible is giving them whiteboards or other tangible options. This is giving their energy a productive outlet. These tools can also be a way for you to check for understanding during your lesson. You see this, or I see this all the time. We're lecturing on a learning lesson and not pausing to be sure all students are following along. I guarantee you, that you have students in the back row that have no idea what is happening in these lessons.
I love lamp.
So by using your whiteboards or tangibles to keep them focused, accountable, you are allowing for that active engagement as well as an opportunity for you to do informal checks during your lesson. Our next strategy is to think about making that real-world connection for your students. We've all heard that question. If the answer is because it's on a test or because I said so, you have already lost your students. Reciting a learning objective, it's just words to them. They need relevance. They need real world. Even our youngest learners need to make connections between what they are learning and how it applies to their daily lives. As you are sharing your anticipatory set and often reciting your objectives, think about how you are helping your students connect the learning to what they already know. Here are two examples. Let's go back to our teaching of place value. It's not about digits. It's about making sure that they understand how to count money, and that they are going to go to a store one day and want to buy a chocolate bar, and we want to make sure they don't get cheated out of the money that they use. Another example is phonics. It's not about sounding out the words, it's the secret code that unlocks every video game instruction manual, or it's the text messages with their friends, or a book that they are going to want to read. When a student sees how a skill helps them in real life, they are more likely to buy into the lesson instead of disrupting it. The next important consideration when developing your lesson plans that supports positive behaviors is those learning preferences. I say preferences over learning styles because it's really about how students prefer to learn. This can look different for all of your students. So what should you think about as you are preparing your lessons to meet the preferences of your students? This starts with your relationships. You have to know your students. Think about the observations that you do early in the year. From those, you will learn, does this group need to talk to a partner to process information? Do they need a visual anchor or a video clip or a YouTube? Do they need to stand up and move to different areas of the classroom? When you plan with these preferences in mind, you aren't fighting against their nature or what students need. You are working with it. A student who is learning in a way that feels natural or that they prefer is a student who isn't looking for a distraction. During your modeling, when you're teaching about the skill, include visuals like charts, videos, or objects. Include words that they can hear for those auditory learners, as well as the potential for movement and interaction. Having all these options as part of just the modeling in your lesson can increase engagement and lower behaviors. Finally, we have to talk about differentiation. I know it's the hardest part of planning, but here's the reality. If a student is sitting there for 40 minutes, not understanding a single word you're saying, they are going to misbehave. It's just their survival mechanism. Never assume they already know the basics. You need to plan for your high-performing students so that they don't get bored. This means often having to cater your lessons to different learning levels. If you are teaching about counting by 5s and 10s, but you know you have 3 students that are easily completing multiplication and division problems, you are going to need to increase the depth of knowledge, like we talked about earlier, in which you are teaching these skills for these 3 students. They might need to connect skip counting to multiplying numbers. That is where their skill level is at. On the other hand, you need to scaffold for your at-risk or struggling learners so that they don't feel defeated. This might include highlighting your skip counting of 5s in blue and your skip counting by 10s in red. This might include manipulatives or visuals for those students who are still working on counting. Do not assume that all of your students are at the same level. When a lesson plan is just right for your students' level, the behavior problems are often minimized because your students are actually capable of doing the work. Lesson planning can be challenging, but remember it can help with your behaviors. So next time you're facing a week of disruptions, take a look at that lesson plan. Have you activated participation? Do your students know why it matters? Is it at the right level? Good planning is the ultimate quiet signal. So think about, what is one engagement strategy that works for your toughest class? Maybe drop it in the comments and let's help each other out. Don't forget to hit subscribe for more classroom strategies.